Good evening and welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission study session. It is presently 6:37 p.m. Monday, October 27th, 2025. I'd like to begin by thanking the commissioners for their service. On our agenda for the study session, first up, item A1, discuss regular agenda items, which takes us to item C1, consider approval of the October 13th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any errors, typos, omissions, points of discussion? All right. Then that takes us to item D1, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a SUP for an indoor commercial amusement use, a baseball practice facility for a portion of approximately 1 acre property located at 13850 North Stemmons Freeway and located within PD 70 zoning district, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Brian Campbell, planner with the Planning Department. Just let me know if you have any questions you'd like to discuss right now, or we can save that for the public hearing.
Go ahead, Harold.
Yes, sir.
Parking requirements, did the parking requirements change at all? I didn't read anything in here about 10 spaces for this particular space, or 20 or 30.
Right, so it's a little bit of a tricky situation. So Plan Development District number 70 doesn't have its own requirement for indoor commercial amusement, so it defaults to the Code of Ordinances. I'm sorry, the CZO, which requires 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. Now, the other 2 uses that are in that building are both warehousing, and PD 70 does have its own standard for that use, which is also 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area, if that helps.
I just wanted to make sure, because it seems like to me if he's going to have 8 or 10 people in there, there could be 8 or 10 cars.
It could be. I would let the applicant address that. However, I will point out that their business model is more appointment-based, so we feel that the parking setup will be adequate.
That's fine.
Okay.
I did have a question on this one
Sure.
as well as the next one. And I just did a quick review of our I-35 corridor vision study. And my read of it, but I would love just to make sure, is that this seems consistent with that as well. And I know we did subsume that to some degree into our 2045 comprehensive plan.
Yes, ma'am.
But I wanted to pay special attention given that it is directly, adjacent to that corridor.
Sure.
So you can speak to it now or during the session, but just clarifying that we're also consistent with that document and what we set forth in that vision.
I can affirm that. These kinds of uses we want to see in the corridor, so.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Any further questions? All right. Thank you again, Brian.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, that takes us to item D2, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for an industrial development on approximately 3.5 acres located at 12197 Denton Drive within PD 32 zoning district, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Chair Raley and members of the P&Z. I'm happy to answer any questions. This is 12197 Denton Drive. It's a warehouse building. May look familiar to some of you. We've seen this case within the last 2 years. It did come up for basically the same thing as what you're going to see tonight. It's basically just flipping the approved site plan. It's a mirror image, so the truck bays were on the south side. Now they're going to be on the north side. That's the primary change. A few other things. The building's getting a little bit shorter, so it will be probably less intrusive, just with the lower height. But basically everything else is staying the same. The elevations will have changed slightly, but again, with state law preemptions, we're not regulating building exteriors in the way we were previously. So,
Great, thank you. Questions? I'm going to ask the same question I asked to Brian, and in your estimation, just confirming that this would be in alignment also with our I-35 corridor vision statement. Again, we're in that corridor and just affirming that. I know, again, we subsume that under the 2045, but just given the attention to that as well.
Yeah, certainly. There's all kinds of plans floating around out there, so it's good to keep tabs on things like the I-35 plan so that it does not get, forgotten about and just collecting dust on a shelf. But yes, I can affirm this does fit into the vision that we have for the corridor as the main artery through our city, and this is actually right on the city limit line, so technically it is right as you're coming into the city from points south. So we feel that this proposal is an improvement over what is there now, which is gravel parking lot.
Indeed. Thank you for affirming that. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move back to, thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll move back to item A2, receive an update from the city attorney regarding items approved during the 89th state legislative session and special session. Thank you, Ashley. You need this?
No, is it loaded up now? Yeah, I sent it to you.
Okay. Bear with us just a moment.
Sure.
And then you can just.
Just use theirs.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm going to be giving you all just a legislative update on the recent bills that were passed. I'm going to spend more time kind of talking about the things that I think are more relevant to planning and zoning. The first thing is the competitive bidding threshold. This is not really relevant to you all, but one of the big changes is that the threshold has been increased from 50,000 to 100,000. So that means that in order to enter into a contract with the city, you don't have to go out, the city won't have to go out for a bid if it's less than $100,000. So that's going to be a pretty big change, and that was effective as of September 1st. So this one is, House Bill 24 is a big one, and it does affect P&Z. And so I want to spend a little time talking about this, and then happy to answer questions later if anyone from the commission has any questions for this. So House Bill 24 basically has revised how cities must notify property owners and how they can handle protests of zoning actions. There's a few changes that were made. One is that they have a new category called the proposed comprehensive zoning change. Additionally, the bill adjusted both notice obligations as well as voting thresholds based on the type of zoning change. So let's unpack really quickly the proposed comprehensive zoning change aspect of this bill. This change, a zoning action now to be considered a proposed comprehensive zoning change will need to meet one of the following requirements. One, it needs to allow more residential development than existing regulations and apply uniformly across one or more zoning districts. Two, it has to adopt a new zoning code or zoning map. And then three, it would need to establish a zoning overlay district along a major roadway, highway, or transit corridor that allows increased residential development. And just to clarify, because I want to make sure it's clear that it has to just meet one of those three requirements. So as long as it meets at least one of those, and it will be considered a proposed comprehensive zoning change. The other big change is the notice requirements. So for proposed comprehensive zoning changes, cities must provide only limited statutory notice, so mail notice to property owners and occupants, and that's only if the change would cause their current conforming use to become non-conforming. And then three, the newspaper and website notice at least 15 days before the public hearing. The other thing I want to talk about is the protest procedures for non-comprehensive zoning changes. So House Bill 24 has revised local government code to 11.006 to establish now 3 protest scenarios. In case you guys, I'm sure you're aware, but before then there were 2 scenarios basically as it pertained to doing a protest. It had to be at least 20% of the area that was within that proposed zoning change. And that was just the default. Now there's 3 different scenarios. So one, you can have property owners of at least 20% of the area who protest the proposed zoning change. In that case, you would require a supermajority vote, so 3/4 vote of the body. Number 2, you'd have property owners who of at least 20% of the area within 200 feet of the rezoned area. And again, you'd require that supermajority vote. Number 3, which is I think the most interesting one, is that property owners of at least 60% of the adjoining area within 200 feet of the rezoned area can protest this change, so long as the change allows more residential use and does not add new commercial or industrial uses. And in that case, it wouldn't require supermajority, it would be a simple vote. If you guys have questions about any of this, please feel free to ask, because I know it's kind of convoluted. But from a legal and practical standpoint, it's just important that we understand that scenarios 1 and 2 will continue to trigger that 3/4 supermajority vote that it always has. However, scenario 3, which is that 60% property owners situation, that would be a simple majority. All right. The biggest thing for Farmers Branch, as far as the implications of House Bill 24, is that staff will just need to identify at the outset whether a proposed zoning case qualifies as a comprehensive or a non-comprehensive change. So that's one big thing. The other thing is that for those non-comprehensive cases, the type of protests will determine the applicable voting threshold. And then finally, for the residential only rezonings, that will be subject to the higher 60% protest bar, and but they can be approved by a simple majority, assuming that bar is met. Okay. And then moving on to home occupations. So this bill basically has created a definition for no impact home-based businesses, and reduce the city's ability to regulate those no impact home-based businesses. The bill outlines what would be considered a no impact home-based business. They'd have to have a certain amount of employees that wouldn't exceed the city's occupancy limit. They'd have to not have any noise issues that would affect the area. Obviously, they'd have to not have an impact on traffic in the area. And so those would be the different categories that would qualify a home-based business as no impact, and then result in the city not being able to regulate them in the same way.
How does this differ from what the Farmers Branch current regulations are for home-based businesses? Is this significantly different than what we currently do?
So I don't know what the current ordinance is as it pertains to that, but I imagine that it might affect it in some way if that ordinance did match what state law allowed. This basically allows people who are, have a home business that, is pretty much all online to be able to operate that business. I'm assuming it's more about being able to register that home as your place of business, but then not have to worry about those city regulations that would affect, that really don't play a role for those types of businesses. But yeah, I'm not sure as far as the city and what they currently provide, but I can get back with you on that. And then House Bill 2844, this regulates food trucks. Essentially, it establishes a statewide mobile food vendor licensing under the Department of State Health and Human Services, and it preempts local regulation that conflicts with state law, but cities can still enforce zoning requirements, location requirements, and fire code restrictions. So Senate Bill 1883 is related to impact fees and land use assumptions. This bill now creates a 3-year freeze for impact fees or increasing impact fees. So in other words, once that impact fee has been adopted, the city would not be able to change it or increase it for 3 years. There's some nuances to this bill. If a fee needed to be increased, or if council wanted to increase an impact fee, they'd have to have a 2/3 vote in order to do that. An independent CPA audit is required before the city can adopt any impact fees. And then the public is required to have 60-day notice prior to a hearing on those impact fees. Additionally, the city has to have an advisory committee That advisory committee would need to consist of at least 50% of people who represent the development or building industries. So Senate Bill 785 and Senate Bill 1341 governed manufactured housing. And this does not go into effect until September of next year. But for this, cities can no longer require an SUP for a new HUD code home that meets federal and state standards. Additionally, they must designate at least one zoning classification allowing HUD code homes by right. And historic districts and deed restrictions, those would not be affected by this bill. All right, occupancy limits, Senate Bill 1567. This is really related to, it's called the frat house bill. It's related to cities that have a university within their territorial limits, and addresses how that city can limit occupancy for frat houses. A big thing that will affect the P&Z Commission is the meeting notice requirements. So Texas Open Meeting Act has been amended through House Bill 1522 and has revised that 72-hour posting requirement to now be 3 business days. And that went into effect September 1st. House Bill 5238 is related to disruption of a meeting. It's now a criminal offense to obstruct or interfere with a public meeting, including by electronic disturbance, in other words, hacking of any sort of virtual component of the meeting. All right. House Bill 1950 is related to municipal court. It essentially created or consolidates the municipal court building security and technology funds into a single consolidated fund for cities with a population of less than 100,000. And then Senate Bill 541 is related to food regulation. It is related to cottage food production. And it modifies that definition to include a nonprofit organization or an individual with an annual gross income of $150,000 or less from the sale of food. It also defines what a cottage food production operation would include and kind of lays out the different foods that would fall into that category. Probably the most interesting thing is that one of those products products that contain CBD can be included in that category. It prohibits cities from requiring any type of license or permit related to cottage food production operation as well. Senate Bill 1008 basically limits city and public health district authority with regard to food service establishment. It caps the amount that a city can charge vendors for permits or inspection fees. Essentially, those fees have to align with the fees that are imposed by the state and can't exceed that. And then Senate Bill 617 is pertaining to homeless relocation. It requires a city to hold a public hearing before converting a property to house homeless individuals to another jurisdiction. And there's some requirements as it pertains to that hearing, such as it's got to be held 90 days before the city begins the conversion of the property. It's got to be held within 1 mile of the subject property, and notice must be sent out via mail. Let's see. House Bill 519 deals with honey deregulation. So it essentially establishes that honey and honeycomb are considered to be raw agricultural commodities. It prohibits cities from regulating their production, but it doesn't prevent that city from dealing with any sort of, or responding to health or safety concerns. The city still would be able to do that. And then finally, House Bill 3611 deals with the regulation of signs in the right-of-way. It amends the transportation code, imposes a civil penalty for placing commercial signs on the right-of-way, and also provides an opportunity for a sign owner to recover, for the city to recover from the sign owner up to $5,000, considering how many violations that sign owner has incurred. And that's pretty much it. Those are the big bills. Oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot one more. House Bill 5057 deals with the notice required for exclusive solid waste franchise agreements. It basically requires cities to provide notice in a newspaper or on the website as it pertains to an exclusive contract with a privately owned solid waste management service provider. There's some elements outlined in the bill as to what the solid waste service provider is allowed to provide as far as services are concerned. But again, that's not really something that would be impacted by the commission. So if you all have any questions, I'm here, and I'll be sure to get back with you, Mr. Miller, about your question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioners, questions? Just maybe for my benefit, if you would just go over that initial one you talked about with the proposed comprehensive zoning change, and because you said there were 3, and any one of the 3 would trigger the need for that, right?
So are you talking about the protest requirements?
It's before you got into the protest discussion, because I understood that one, because there was the 2 existing and the new with the city's 60% of the adjacent properties within the 200. It was the one you talked about very first.
Sure.
And
So
the problem for me is it wasn't also written down, and my learning style is much better if I can read it and hear it at the same time. So I'm going to attempt to take much better notes this time.
no problem. So essentially, the proposed comprehensive zoning change, House Bill 24 has added a new definition for that. So it now applies to a broader zoning actions by cities. So it'll include proposals that, 1, allow more residential development than existing regulations and apply uniformly across 1 or more zoning districts. 2, that adopt a new citywide zoning code or zoning map. Or 3, establish a zoning overlay district along a major roadway, highway, or transit corridor that permits increased residential development. And so it only need to meet one of those to be considered a comprehensive zoning change.
Excellent. That's precisely what I needed, were those 3 categories again. Thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
All right. Thank you once again for your expertise.
No problem.
Much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Sorry for the technical.
All right, and that takes us up to item A3, discuss agenda items for future Planning and Zoning Commission consideration. I know we had several last time, but commissioners, any items? All right, well, seeing none, we will then end our study session. It is presently 7:06 p.m. Commissioners, do you need a break before we go into our regular session? Anyone needing a break, speak now? Okay. Well, then with that, we will, do we need to reset our tech? Okay. Well, with that, then, assuming that we are all okay, we will commence with our regular meeting. It is presently 7:07 p.m., a Monday, October 27th. Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We will begin this evening first by thanking the commissioners for their service, and then with citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen's comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There's a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. When called, please approach the podium and state your name and address prior to beginning your comment. Please direct all comments to the commission and not to the audience. And this evening, we had no one signed up for citizen comments, so we will move on to our regular agenda items. Up first, item C1, consider approval of the October 13th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners?
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
I second.
Second, any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor to approve the minutes as presented? All right, thank you all. We'll now move to our public hearings. Item D1, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a specific use permit for an indoor commercial amusement use baseball practice facility for a portion of approximately 1 acre property located at 13850 North Simmons Freeway and located within the Planned Development District Number 70 zoning district, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. All right. Well, thank you all very much. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be presenting before you this evening. I'm Brian Campbell, planner with the Planning Department, here to present to you tonight on the specific use permit for 13850 North Simmons Freeway. So this is the subject property. It is zoned Planned Development District Number 70 and is located within the freeway subdistrict of this PD. And this is a specific use permit request for an indoor commercial amusement use, more specifically an indoor baseball practice facility. So the applicant is Pendulum Swing Lab, which provides coaching and training on batting and pitching techniques related to baseball on an appointment basis. So with that, they are seeking approval of an SUP in order to set up shop in Suite 100 of the existing building. With that, the proposed hours of operations would be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. Regarding parking requirements, PD 70 requires, PD 70 defaults to the CZO when it comes to parking standards for indoor commercial amusement uses, which requires 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And so given Suite 100's square footage of 5,100 square feet, they would be required to provide 6 parking spaces. PD 70 does have its own requirement when it comes to warehousing uses, which is the primary use for the 2 adjoining suites, number 110 and number 120, with number 110 being occupied by Azuma Catering and 120 being occupied by WS Construction. So PD 70 requires 1 space per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area for warehousing uses. So given the combined square footage of these 2 suites being 8,000 square feet, each user is required to provide 4 parking spaces each. So between the 3 uses, there are a total of 14 parking spaces that are required. The subject property currently houses 23 parking spaces, and given the applicant's appointment-based business model, staff feels that this parking situation will be adequate. Regarding landscaping, PD 70 does require at least 5% of the subject property to be landscaped, with the required front yard being dedicated to open space, and that 1 tree per 30 lineal feet of street frontage be planted. So in this situation, 4 trees would be required to be planted each along both North Simmons Freeway and Denton Drive. So in this scenario, we actually have 15% of the property that's landscaped, with 11 trees adjacent to North Simmons Freeway and 5 along Denton Drive, which exceeds this threshold. And the applicant does propose to maintain this landscaping. The applicant does propose to use the suite in its current form, with any interior modifications being made necessary to suit their business operations, as illustrated in the floor plan that was included within your agenda packet. So turning to the recommendations of the Farmers Branch 2045 plan, the Farmers Branch 2045 plan does designate the subject property and the surrounding area as regional commercial. With this land use designation, the plan does recommend a series of single commercial uses for the property that are visible from regional thoroughfares and highways. And so given that the recommended land uses are limited to commercial, office, and services. And so given that this is a indoor commercial amusement use compatible with this land use designation, the proposal is consistent with the Farmers Branch 2045 plan. And I would also point out this use has potential to provide additional economic vitality and consumer activity in the area with the use. So on October 20th, we did mail 20 notification letters to all surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, as we now require, in addition to both the Carrollton Farmers Branch and Dallas Independent School Districts, and a zoning sign was placed on the property this same day. As of this evening, we have not received any correspondence regarding the case. So this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those. We do have the applicant here with us tonight as well, if you have any questions for them. Otherwise, I thank you for your time this evening. And Chair Raley, in anticipation of your question of when this will go to council, it'll be November 18th. Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for that, Brian. Just one minor correction. I think I heard you say that the letters were mailed on the 20th, but I think it was 20 letters mailed on the 16th.
Yes, that's correct. 20 letters mailed on October 16th.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Just so it's correct on the record.
Of course.
All right. Any questions for staff? All right. Do we have questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant. Applicant, would you like to make any presentation? We don't have any questions at this time, but want to make sure.
It's actually dated. I don't need to make a presentation for questions.
Okay, great. Well, with that,
Then I would move that we close the public hearing.
okay. And just confirming, we had no one signed up to speak on this item, and we have a movement to close the public hearing.
Whole second.
Seconded. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those who would vote favorably to close the public hearing. All right, so now with that done, we'll hear action on the item.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval as presented.
Recommendation to approve
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor to recommend approval? All right, and as stated, this will go to council on November 18th.
Yes.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Next up, item D2, conduct a public hearing and consider the request for a zoning amendment for industrial development on approximately 3.5 acres located at 12197 Denton Drive within the Planned Development District Number 32 zoning district and take appropriate action. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Chair Raley and members of the P&Z. My name is Brett Mangum, lead planner with the Planning Department here at City Farmers Branch. It's a pleasure to present to you this evening. This is case 25ZA09, 12197 Denton Drive. This is a proposal for a rezoning for a new warehouse and office development. On your screen in green, you can see the subject site. We're at approximately 3.5 acres. This property is situated on the southern boundary line, just adjacent to the city of Dallas, and it has double frontage, with the left-hand side being the I-35 Stemmons frontage road, and the back being Denton Drive, and there are access points on both of those streets for circulation. Currently, the property is zoned PD, Plan Development Number 32, which was established back in 1982. More recently, we have had a detailed site plan which was approved in June of 2024 for this site for a very similar type of development, warehouse and office. What you're looking at tonight is basically the same thing that was approved by P&Z and City Council unanimously back in June 2024. The only major difference is the site plan. The building has flipped in a mirror image from north to south. So previously we had 5 truck loading docks on the south side of the property. Now they have been flipped away from that, and they're on the north side, which will face the existing trio of buildings you see on the top of the screen, which is a separate property. Tonight's amendment does include a trio of different items. We'll have a detailed site plan component. In addition to that, we'll have a landscape plan as well as building elevations. So the developer will be tied to developing as you're seeing on the screen without any deviations. If there are any changes, just like we're doing tonight, it will prompt a second round of review, public hearing, and P&Z and council approval. These just show some of the current conditions on the site. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this property. It's a very highly visible site as you come into the city on the 35 frontage road. Currently, there's really nothing much out there at all, no landscaping. It's basically just a gravel parking lot, hardtack parking lot. The Dart line lies across Denton Drive. That is actually a little bit unique because the right-of-way for Denton Drive is within the city of Dallas, but the city of Farmers Branch does contain all of the actual land holdings. On the screen, I've included the building elevations. This would be specifically for the building that faces I-35, so it will be the more visible of the two buildings. Just to point out, the warehouse building has the same architectural style and details. It's just a little bit different in the height, and it's going to have less windows because it's a warehouse, but very similar to what you'll see on both buildings. Again, the warehouse building will be the smaller of the buildings. I believe it's 35,000 square foot, if I'm correct. The total square footage for the two buildings is 53,000. It's a mix. The front will be retail and office, and then the back building will be a warehouse. There's also parking, streetscape, and landscaping improvements included. Again, going back to the previous approval, there's no changes in the land use, so the warehouse use, the office use, and the retail use are all allowed by right here at this site. We're not making any changes there. It's just basically flipping the location of the dock doors. And again, worth pointing out, there's no outdoor storage component. All the activity will take place inside of the buildings. So this gives you a better idea of specifically what we're looking at. This is the landscape plan. Staff did an analysis of the application, and what's being proposed here does seem to meet all of our standards for PD 32. It's not deficient in any manner. Specifically looking at the parking, based on the square footages in PD 32, it requires 57 parking spaces for the amount of square footage listed here, and they are providing 76, so it complies there. As far as landscaping goes, that is going to be a 5% base requirement, and then 24 street trees based on the lineal square footage for both streets. They're exceeding those minimum requirements as well with 10% landscaping, and then they're meeting the 24 street trees right on point. Looking at our long-range plans, we do have the 2045 comprehensive plan that was adopted 2 years ago. And you can see on the bottom of the screen in red, we've outlined the general vicinity of the site. So the comprehensive plan is, again, our 30,000-foot view. And basically, they're saying that this particular vicinity of this neighborhood is designated as future commercial and industrial employment center. So a warehouse office would be perfectly in alignment with that designation. Other types of uses would be office research, light industrial, warehousing, or logistics. So as you can see, it's always good to have that consistency with the comprehensive plan. Our analysis overall is that this land use would be compatible with the surrounding developments at the present time. Looking at the public notice, we followed the requirements in state law, sent out 8 letters to owners within 300 foot on October 16th. Zoning notification sign was posted by city staff on the same day. And as of tonight's meeting, we have not received any correspondence either in support or in opposition to this particular request. So with that, that's the extent of my presentation. We do have the applicant's team here. If you have any questions for them, they can answer anything that I may have missed. But with that, I will turn it back over to you for further discussion.
Thank you. I'm going to first ask if this would, if approved here, go to, or recommend for approval, go to City Council on November 18th as well.
I can confirm November 18th.
Great, thank you. And any other questions for staff? Thank you very much. Do we have questions for the applicant? Okay, applicant, we will have questions. If you don't mind, just come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, and Kyle McCullough with Park McCullough Architects. I want to thank you. I want to start off by thanking the staff. Sam, I thank you for all your time, and Mr. Brett too, to letting us move forward with the project. So I'm here to answer your question here, sir.
I noted in here in reading that these lots weren't split up the first time. There's a lot A and a lot B now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you going to build them both at the same time? Or?
Yes, sir. We are going to build them both at the same time.
This is kind of off the wall.
No, it isn't, sir. Yeah.
Is there, if 10 years down the road, you decide to sell these buildings separately, they're on separate lots?
Yes, correct.
Is there provision, or do you need to make provision for ingress and egress from one property to the other?
Well, we have an over power line easement that's running through between the two of them. It's approximately 100 feet wide. That's the reason that there's that area that is being shown between Building A and Building B. You're talking about an access easement correlation or mutual access easement. I have the civil engineer here. He's going to.
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
down the road, if for some reason you decide to sell the front of the back, or
This is
east
our
or
civil
west.
engineer. Right.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick answers. When we get into engineering, we'll be required to have a cross-access between the two lots, just to address that item. In case, for whatever reason, one party or another, we'd be committing, here when this permit gets approved, to dedicate access from, mutual access one to another. I know the fire department will want that so they can come through and circulate the site and get out on either Denton or on the frontage
Right.
road coming in.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And David Bond with Spires Engineering. for the
Thank you for that. Any further questions for our applicant? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, and thank you very much, and good seeing you guys again.
All right, a reminder that this is a public hearing. We have no one signed up to speak for the public hearing. Do we have any other comments, discussion?
And I would move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to that. All those in favor to close the public hearing? All right, and now we'll hear action on the item. With that,
I'll make a motion to recommend approval as presented.
all right, a recommendation for approval
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion on the item? All right, with that, all those vote to approve, recommending approval? In favor? All right, and this will go to City Council on November 18th. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, and with that, that ends our business for the evening, so we will adjourn at 7:26 PM. Thank you all.